you find yourself trapped in a cycle so subtle, so invisible, that it silently drains your energy, your dreams, and your very life force. This cycle doesn't shout, it whispers, and yet its power is relentless, unyielding, slowly consuming everything within you, even when you firmly believe you are in control of your own life. This is not a dramatization. It is not an exaggeration designed to catch your attention. Instead, it is a harsh, uncomfortable truth that most people refuse to acknowledge or even recognize. Every morning when you open your eyes, you carry with you unseen forces that quietly dictate every decision you make, every thought that crosses your mind, and every impulse that urges you to act. These forces operate independently of your consent. They neither seek your approval nor care about your carefully laid plans or logical reasoning. You may tell yourself, today will be different. Today, I will finally break free. Today, I will no longer sabotage my own efforts. Today, I will take firm control of my life. Yet, before the sun sets, there you are again, stuck in the same exhausting loop. You repeat the very behaviors you promised yourself you would leave behind. You dive headfirst into the distractions that steal your focus. You feed the very vices that chip away at your well-being. And you avoid, once again, what truly matters the most. It is critical to understand that this phenomenon is not a reflection of your intelligence or a lack of it. Nor is it simply about willpower, discipline, or motivation. Those common explanations fall short of the truth. There is something far more complex and profoundly rooted within the human psyche at play. More than a century ago, the psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud was among the first to reveal this hidden layer of our existence with chilling clarity. According to Freud, humans are not driven solely by the instinct to live, grow, and create. Deep within us lies a primal force, ancient as life itself, which he called the death drive, a blind, unconscious impulse towards dissolution, self-destruction, and a return to absolute nothingness. What makes this revelation even more disturbing is how our brain has evolved to disguise this self-destructive tendency as pleasure. Every act of self-sabotage, every destructive pattern you unknowingly repeat, every choice you make that you know deep down will harm you, is paradoxically rewarded by your own neurochemical system. Your brain floods your nervous system with dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with reward and motivation. This creates a false sense of relief and fleeting pleasure. Your brain, ironically, reinforces the very behaviors that are eroding your life. The vicious cycle continues, but because this destructive force is camouflaged in the modern world, it is often impossible to see or understand. Today, the death drive does not announce itself with grand tragedy or overt despair. It hides behind the masks of instant gratification, mindless distractions, compulsive behaviors, procrastination, and subtle vices. It hides in the constant barrage of social media notifications, pornography, alcohol, overeating, video games, toxic relationships, and excessive workaholism. These are the vehicles of self-destruction dressed up as temporary pleasures, quiet assassins that chip away at your vitality while you remain unaware. This is the camouflaged expression of the death drive, a covert desire to escape, to erase, to dissolve the self. Have you ever experienced that internal resistance, the invisible force that rises within you whenever you try to make a meaningful change? That silent voice inside your head whispering, "It's not worth the effort. Why bother?" No matter how hard you fight, you are inexplicably pulled back into the same patterns, the same traps. This is not a sign of weakness. It is a profound conflict within your own psyche, a battlefield where two fundamental forces clash: Eros, the life drive pushing you toward creation, growth, and connection, and Thanatos, the death drive pulling you toward dissolution and escape. In this series, we will explore these forces without euphemism or avoidance. I want you to fully understand why you remain trapped in these destructive cycles, why you repeatedly make choices that undermine your well-being, even though you consciously wish to change. And more importantly, I will share how you can begin to dismantle these invisible chains. But be warned, this journey demands courage and honesty. If you are willing to face the deepest, most hidden parts of your mind, stay with me. Together, we will embark on a path of self-discovery and transformation that may change everything you thought you knew about yourself. The human mind is not a unified, rational machine. It is a complex battlefield of competing forces and desires. Freud was one of the earliest thinkers to understand that we are not harmonious beings smoothly navigating life. Rather, our psyche is a battleground where conflicting impulses struggle for control over our decisions and behavior. At the heart of this inner conflict lie two primordial drives that shape our existence: Eros and Thanatos. In Greek mythology, Eros, sometimes associated with Eros or Cupid, is the god of love, creation, and life. Eros symbolizes the life force that compels us to preserve, unite, and generate new life. It is the energy that pushes us to create art, build communities, develop civilization, and nurture relationships. Every time you seek knowledge, embark on a project, care for your body or mind, or connect meaningfully with others, Eros is at work within you. It is the force behind human progress, growth, and survival. Yet, alongside Eros stands Thanatos, the personification of death, dissolution, and destruction. Thanatos embodies the unconscious impulse towards cessation, the longing to escape struggle, pain, and effort by dissolving the self into nothingness. Freud argued that this death drive is a universal force inherent in all living beings, a desire to nullify life's tensions and return to an original state of calm and rest. Thanatos, unlike Eros, does not manifest openly or dramatically. It does not shout, "I want to die." Instead, it sneaks into your life in subtle, insidious ways. It appears in the self-sabotaging habits you cannot explain, in the vices that numb your pain while slowly corroding your well-being, in the toxic relationships that drain your energy, and in the chronic procrastination that silently erodes your potential. Every moment you seek temporary relief in destructive behaviors, even when you know they harm you, you are witnessing Thanatos in action. And tragically, your brain's dopamine system deceives you by rewarding these behaviors, creating a powerful feedback loop that reinforces self-destruction disguised as pleasure. This is the dark, perverse game played inside your mind every day. But don't be fooled. Eros and Thanatos do not operate in isolation. They coexist, intertwined in every impulse, every decision. What feels like pleasure may be Thanatos disguised. What you resist might be Eros fighting to emerge. How then do we identify these hidden forces in our everyday life? How can you learn to see when Thanatos is masquerading as pleasure, dragging you into destructive cycles? We will dive deeper into this in the next part. If what you hear so far resonates with you, please consider subscribing to this channel. Your support helps us continue exploring these profound truths. In the modern world, Thanatos does not arrive dressed in black robes or with dramatic music. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or destruction. No, it comes in silence, with a smile, with softness. It appears in the glow of a screen, in the comfort of scrolling, in the just one more episode, in the sugar-laced reward after a long day. It sneaks past your awareness, cloaked in the familiarity of pleasure. And that is exactly what makes it so dangerous. The death drive no longer manifests as a conscious wish to perish. It does not scream, "I want to die." Instead, it whispers something far more seductive. Just relax. Take it easy. You deserve this. You've done enough. And in that gentle voice lies the slow unraveling of your vitality. We live in a time where every element of life is saturated with stimuli designed to bypass your awareness and tap directly into your reward system. You are surrounded by an army of temptations: short videos, endless feeds, late-night snacks, online shopping, dopamine-optimized entertainment. These things are not inherently evil, but they are engineered to exploit your most vulnerable instincts. They offer immediate comfort at the cost of long-term erosion. Every time you say, "Today will be different," and find yourself back in the same pattern, scrolling, binging, avoiding, this is not a failure of willpower. It's not that you're weak or undisciplined. What's happening is deeper. Thanatos is operating through behaviors that seem harmless on the surface, but are in fact gateways to mental sedation. This is not metaphor. It is the quiet tragedy of our time. A generation numbing itself into spiritual hibernation. You tell yourself you'll change tomorrow, but tomorrow looks exactly like today. You know you're not happy with the cycle. You know something in you is eroding, and yet you repeat again and again. This is the death drive, not as despair, but as distraction. You see, real change requires discomfort. It demands presence, and that's precisely what the modern manifestations of Thanatos are designed to help you avoid. Social media, processed foods, compulsive entertainment, addictive apps, all these offer the illusion of relief, but that relief is fleeting. And worse, it's reinforcing a loop of behavior that keeps you numb. Let's make this real. Have you ever spent an hour doing something you know is not good for you? Eating mindlessly, binging shows, doom scrolling, and then, afterward, felt a deep sense of regret? That hollow ache of wasted time, wasted energy, that is the signal. That's your psyche crying out. But in that very moment, your brain doesn't care. It has already rewarded the behavior. It gave you a hit of dopamine. And so, even regret becomes part of the cycle. Because here's the key. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. It is designed to keep you alive and conserve energy. And in today's world, conserving energy often means indulging in cheap relief instead of doing the harder work of living consciously. The brain, like an ancient machine, interprets every relief as success, even when that success is self-destruction in disguise. But it goes even further. The most terrifying part is that Thanatos does not only appear in these obvious vices, it also hides in socially acceptable behaviors. You can be slowly unraveling even while appearing productive, working 12-hour days in a job you hate, saying yes to everyone except yourself, overcommitting, smiling when you want to scream. These two are masks of Thanatos because they disconnect you from what is alive within you. They drain you under the illusion of responsibility. You perform a version of yourself while your true self fades into the background. We often think of self-destruction as dramatic, addiction, violence, collapse. But in truth, it's much more common in its silent forms. Chronic procrastination, emotional avoidance, staying in a relationship that stifles you, constantly postponing your dreams. These are all subtle ways the death drive manifests. Everyday betrayals of your deeper needs, reinforced by a system that rewards conformity, sedation, and avoidance. And your brain, loyal but blind, helps it all along. Dopamine, that famed chemical often called the pleasure molecule, is not what you think it is. It does not create joy. It does not give you happiness. What it does is more mechanical. It motivates you to seek repetition. It tells you, do this again. It worked. It is not concerned with whether the action builds you up or breaks you down. As long as there was a perceived reward, however small, your brain marks it as worthy of repeating. That's how habits form. Not because something feels deeply good, but because something felt good enough to survive. And if that habit is destructive, if it's a way to avoid your emotions, numb your pain, or escape your reality, it doesn't matter. Dopamine doesn't judge. It only reinforces. This is why the same patterns feel automatic. The more times you repeat the behavior, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. It's not a choice anymore. It's a reflex. You tell yourself, I'm just going to check my phone for a second, and 45 minutes disappear. You think, just one episode, and the night is gone. The next morning, guilt washes over you, but by evening, you're back at it again. The cycle tightens, and beneath it all, Thanatos smiles. It does not care whether your destruction is fast or slow. It thrives in silence. It wins when you stop noticing. And that is the ultimate trick, to make you believe this is normal, that this dull ache of spiritual emptiness is just part of life, that you are supposed to feel tired all the time, disconnected, anxious, reactive, that your dreams are meant to remain in notebooks, that your pain should be hidden, managed, and never explored. But this is not life. This is a sedated existence, a quiet slide into unconsciousness. So what now? What do you do with this knowledge? You begin by recognizing that you are not broken. You are not lazy. You are not a failure. You are not too far gone. What you are is human, caught in a war between two ancient forces, Eros and Thanatos, the force that wants you to grow, build, create, and live, and the force that wants you to dissolve, return, escape, disappear. The question is not whether these forces exist within you. They do. The question is which one you are feeding, which one you are listening to, and which one you are building your life around, knowingly or not. In the next part, we'll take this deeper. We'll uncover how your brain's reward circuit can be hijacked. We'll break down how dopamine, this seemingly innocent chemical, can become an accomplice to your self-destruction. And more importantly, we'll begin the journey of rewiring, of reclaiming your choices, of learning to spot the disguise and say, no more. Because this is not the end, this is the turning. Now we dive deeper into the biology, into the brain, into the mechanism that turns your own mind into both captor and captive. If you want to understand why the cycle feels so impossible to escape, you need to understand this. Your brain is not your enemy, but it can easily become your saboteur. And the tool it uses, reliably, invisibly, is dopamine. Let's start by correcting a myth. Dopamine is not the chemical of pleasure. It is the chemical of anticipation, of motivation, of desire. It does not reward you for feeling good. It rewards you for repeating behaviors your brain has associated with relief, even when that relief is fleeting, harmful, or hollow. So every time you engage in a behavior that numbs your discomfort, even slightly, binging food, scrolling endlessly, watching another mindless episode, your brain marks that behavior as effective, not healthy, not fulfilling, just effective in reducing momentary tension. And that is enough for the dopamine system to say, yes, do it again. This is why it's so hard to break bad habits. They are not logical. They are not moral. They are not based on your values or long-term goals. They are simply reinforced circuits. And if you repeat them enough, they become the default, like a well-worn trail through a forest. Even if you build a new path, the old one is faster, easier, more familiar, and under stress, you'll return to it without even noticing. This is how your brain, an ancient survival machine, becomes the perfect accomplice of Thanatos. Because Thanatos, the death drive, wants comfort over growth, sedation over awareness, repetition over risk. It does not scream give up. It whispers just relax, just one more. This is fine. And dopamine makes sure you feel rewarded every time you listen. But there's something even more dangerous. You don't just reinforce habits, you reinforce identity. The more you behave in a certain way, the more you start to see yourself as that kind of person. I'm just not a morning person. I've always been messy. I'm a procrastinator. These aren't facts. They're stories built on repeated actions, shaped by neural pathways and biological feedback loops. In other words, your patterns aren't just what you do. They become who you think you are. And this is where the death drive gains even more power. Because if you believe you're your patterns, then change feels like death. Letting go of the behavior becomes letting go of your identity. And your brain, programmed for consistency, will resist that with everything it has. But the story gets darker still. According to Freud, the death drive does not act alone. It is embedded within your psyche, in the very structure of your inner world. To understand this, we need to revisit one of the most profound and unsettling insights in modern psychology. You are not fully in control of yourself. Your conscious mind, the you that plans, decides, hopes, is only a small part of what governs your behavior. Freud broke the psyche into three main components: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is the primal core. It's impulsive, emotional, chaotic. It doesn't care about consequences, society, or time. It wants what it wants, and it wants it now. Both the life drive, eros, and the death drive, Thanatos, live here. They are raw, instinctual forces, unfiltered and unashamed. The ego is the mediator. It tries to navigate between the wild demands of the id and the constraints of the real world. It tries to be reasonable, to function, but it's not nearly as powerful as you might think. Under stress, it gets overwhelmed. The superego is the internalized voice of authority, society, parents, culture. It judges, it criticizes, it punishes. When you feel guilt, shame, or self-hatred, that's the superego at work. Now imagine this inner triangle constantly battling inside you. The id wants pleasure, the superego wants perfection, and the ego is stuck in the middle, exhausted, trying to keep peace between forces that cannot be reconciled. This is the battlefield where Thanatos thrives. Because here's the twisted truth. The superego often helps the death drive. Not because it wants you to fail, but because it over-punishes you when you try to change. Have you ever set a goal, failed once, and then collapsed into shame? Have you told yourself you're worthless, weak, pathetic for messing up? That voice, the cruel inner critic, is not helping. It's feeding Thanatos. Because shame makes you retreat. Guilt makes you freeze. The harder you try to fix yourself through self-hatred, the more you reinforce the belief that you were broken. And so you return to the numbing cycle, to the very behaviors you were trying to escape. This is how the internal war sustains itself. The id urges you toward immediate gratification. The superego shames you for obeying it. The ego collapses under the weight of their conflict. And the result? You repeat. You regress. You hide. You tell yourself stories to avoid the truth. It's just been a rough week. I'll start next month. This is just how I am. But deep down, you feel the cycle. You feel the grip of something invisible, something deeper than laziness or bad luck. That something is Thanatos, operating through your biology and your unconscious mind, using your own brain chemistry to keep you in the loop. But now, you're starting to see it. You're starting to name the mechanisms, and naming is the beginning of reclaiming. Let's take this one step further. Have you ever noticed that right before a major breakthrough, right before you finally start a new project, end a toxic relationship, begin a habit, you feel paralyzed? You feel tired, anxious, resistant? That's not coincidence. That's the death drive reacting to the threat of change. Because change is pain. Change is effort. Change means confronting truths you've been avoiding. It means giving up anesthesia. And your psyche, built on years of patterns, fears that more than anything. So when you get close to real transformation, Thanatos sends reinforcements, rationalizations. Maybe this isn't the right time. Emotional resistance. I just don't feel like it today. Distracting impulses. Let me check my messages real quick. And just like that, you retreat. Again. Not because you don't care, not because you're weak, but because there is a very old, very primal part of you that is terrified of living fully, terrified of leaving the comfort of numbness. And now you see it. You see that dopamine is not the villain, nor is the id, nor is your phone, your food, or your habits. These are all tools, used by unconscious forces to fulfill an even deeper desire. The desire to stop struggling, to rest, to dissolve. That's the hidden core of the death drive. Not evil, not drama, just a deep, aching wish to stop trying. But life doesn't work that way. Growth doesn't happen in apathy. Meaning doesn't arise in sedation. If you want to reclaim your life, you must do something radical. Face the very discomfort you've spent years avoiding. And that is what we'll explore in the final part. How to confront the shadow without being consumed by it. How to rewire the reward system. How to stop running and start living. That means something. It means a part of you, a deep, quiet part, wants out. Out of the loop, out of the sedative spiral, out of the invisible war you've been trapped in for years. And now, you have a choice. You can keep living like before, comfortably numb, sedated by distractions, seduced by dopamine rewards masking destruction. Or you can step into discomfort, not for punishment, but for awakening. Because true transformation begins when we stop asking, how can I avoid pain? And start asking, what is my pain trying to tell me? Let's make this clear. Breaking the cycle is not about willpower. It's not about repeating positive affirmations or posting motivational quotes. It's about doing the hardest thing a human can do, facing yourself, all of you. And this starts with a deep psychological truth. You cannot change what you don't acknowledge. You cannot heal what you're too afraid to feel. Most self-destructive behaviors are not problems. They are solutions. They are your psyche's way of coping with pain you never fully processed. The compulsive scrolling, the procrastination, the late-night binge, the toxic relationship. You don't do these things because you're stupid or broken. You do them because somewhere deep inside, they temporarily numb something unbearable. So the first real act of transformation is compassion. Compassion for the child who needed to escape. Compassion for the teenager who built walls instead of boundaries. Compassion for the adult who didn't know another way to cope. You are not your patterns. You are not your impulses. You are not your worst day. You are the awareness behind all of it. But awareness alone is not enough. You need integration. And integration doesn't mean killing Thanatos. That's impossible and unnecessary. It means learning to recognize when he speaks. It means naming his disguises. It means saying, I see you. I know what you want, but I'm choosing differently now. That is agency. That is reclamation. That is what it means to live consciously. So, how do we begin? 1. Rewiring the dopamine loop. The first step is to understand your brain is plastic. That means it can be rewired, but only through consistency and intentional repetition. Start small. Replace one compulsive behavior with one nourishing alternative. Instead of checking your phone upon waking, drink a glass of water and sit in silence for 2 minutes. Instead of binging at night, write down one thing you're avoiding and ask yourself why. These are not dramatic changes, but they interrupt the cycle, and that interruption is power. Track what triggers you, track what numbs you, track what strengthens you. Over time, your brain will form new pathways, new circuits, new stories. Because that's what behavior becomes, story. 2. Create microspaces between impulse and action. This is the heart of freedom. When the impulse comes, pause, just for 5 seconds. Name what you're feeling. Ask, is this Eros or Thanatos? You won't always choose right, and that's okay. But those 5 seconds, they are cracks in the armor, cracks through which consciousness enters. And eventually, the delay becomes choice, and the choice becomes strength. 3. Reclaim ritual and introspection. Your mind is filled with noise because the world is filled with noise, so you must actively cultivate stillness. Not once a year, every day. Meditation, journaling, therapy. Not as trendy habits, but as sacred acts of reclamation. Because your unconscious is not your enemy. It's a part of you that's been silenced. You must listen to it, talk to it, and when needed, reparent it. Ask, what am I running from? What pain have I never grieved? What identity have I outgrown but still cling to? These questions aren't easy. They're alchemical. They don't just inform you, they transform you. 4. Build a relationship with Eros. Eros is not just romantic love. It is the creative force in you, the life energy that wants to build, to grow, to nourish. To break the cycle, you need to feed Eros daily. What brings you real fulfillment, not stimulation? What makes you feel alive, even if it's hard? What relationships leave you energized, not drained? Start rebuilding your life around those answers. Because the more you feed Eros, the less you need Thanatos. And remember, pleasure is not the enemy, but pleasure without purpose becomes poison. Let Eros teach you how to enjoy again, but in ways that create, not destroy. 5. Heal the superego's cruelty. That voice in your head that punishes, belittles, and condemns. It's not the truth. It's a distortion. It's often the voice of someone else, parent, teacher, society, internalized so deeply, it feels like your own. You must learn to replace it. Not with delusion, but with discernment. Mistakes don't mean you're failing. Relapses don't mean you're broken. Delays don't mean you failed. They mean you're human. Speak to yourself the way you would to a friend who is struggling, not with false positivity, but with fierce compassion. You slipped, yes, but you're not done. Get up. This is the voice that dissolves shame. This is the voice that disarms Thanatos. 6. Commit, even when you're not ready. If you wait until you feel ready, you'll never begin. Because readiness is a lie. Your brain tells you to delay discomfort. Start before you believe in yourself. Start while you're afraid. Start without a guarantee. Because action is not the result of confidence. It's the cause. And here's the truth. The discomfort won't kill you. Avoiding it might. You've now seen the map. You've felt the shadow. You've named the enemy within. And now, one last truth. The self-destructive cycle is not your fate. It's just a well-worn path. You can walk a new one. Not perfectly, not instantly, but consciously. This is your task now, not to defeat Thanatos, but to outgrow him. To become a person for whom sedation is no longer satisfying. To become a soul that chooses life on purpose. And every time you pause, reflect, and choose differently, you are rewriting the pattern. One breath at a time, one choice at a time, one day at a time. That is what freedom looks like. Not dramatic, not easy, but real. Music swells, then fades. If you've come this far, I invite you, don't stop here. Comment below. What part of this journey resonated most with you? What cycle are you ready to break? This is not just a video. This is a mirror, and the reflection can be hard, but also holy. So keep going. Watch the next video. Keep waking up, because the war inside you is real. But so is the part of you that still wants to live. And now, that part has a voice.